Hey, good morning. Scott Luton, Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, Scott. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. I think we've got a incredible, intriguing, informative, and fun conversation teed up here today. And we're not going to waste much time. Yeah, they're counting with me. If you're counting with me at home, those are 4 words that I rarely get right if I say them in order in the same sentence. So but today we nailed it. Greg, on today's show, we're going to be talking about how and why your technologies are still failing you. So for so many in global business and especially supply chain, that seems to be the ongoing case. Is that right, Greg?
Especially in supply chain. And the biggest reason is that a lot of technology that has evolved into supply chain didn't start as supply chain. ERPs are not supply chain solutions. They're finance solutions with a supply chain module. And sometimes they start as a very tightly defined module. Anyway, these ERP systems, first of all, they're miles wide nowadays and an inch deep in so many areas, except for finance, which is what they were built for.
Right.
They were built decades and decades and decades ago. Some of the most popular ones still have code snippets from the 60s, 1960s and 70s. And they're just not built for the robust data that exists out there today. They can't store it. They can't process it. They certainly can't create it. And one of the other main flaws is because they were built so long ago, they were built to be customizable. You get a little nugget of a solution, and then a technology or a consulting firm has to build tens of millions of dollars worth of functionality around that. And that prices out a lot of companies. And the advent of even just packaged software, but now cloud technology gives you the power, the data processing, and configurability that is equal to customizability, but it's also very, very supportable. And that is kind of where things are going. Well, hell, it's where things have been going for decades, right? But that is why so many companies are, if not abandoning their technology, you talked about this today, Scott, on LinkedIn. If they're not abandoning their technology, they're layering these new technologies on top of the old, right? So that they don't have these 40, 50, $200 million implementation bills, but they start to create that specialization in some of those areas like supply chain and specific areas of supply chain that really require it.
Yes. And they don't lose all the time that comes with these implementations oftentimes. So people, you name it. And we're going to get into some of this here today by folks that have been there and done that, as Melissa Dietz and Christine Barnhart with Verusen will be joining us in just a second. Right, Greg?
A little more than a second.
All right. Well, hey, with that said, though, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from what you're all thinking as we navigate this conversation. I promise you, Christine is a repeat guest. We enjoy our conversations here. Melissa, it'll be the first time she's joining us, but hey, her reputation precedes her. We were talking about that in the pre-show. So stay tuned and get your voice and your POV ready. Now, Greg,
supply chain practitioner who went to the tech side, that is incredibly valuable when you're either choosing or implementing or deploying technology. That knowledge is critical.
Does that come with a lightsaber if you move over to the tech side?
I bet. I know Melissa a little bit. I bet she has one.
We'll dive into that topic maybe in a future episode. Let's say hello to a few folks across the global SCN fam, wherever you are. Dr. Rhonda is back with us. Of course, we know she's in the Phoenix area. Love her content, love her passion and her kindred spirit. So, Rhonda, hope this finds you well. Kanchan, tuned in from India via LinkedIn. Great to have you here today. If I get your name wrong, please let me know. It's so important to get folks' name wrong and name right, rather, Greg.
Both are important, Scott. One's just not desirable. Right.
Well, regardless, welcome to the conversation and looking forward to your perspective here today. Get this picture that Catherine paints. And Catherine, of course, big thanks to you and Amanda and Chantel and the production team. Catherine says, "Good morning from the sunny North Georgia mountains. I wanted to join in on the weather updates today." Greg.
Right. I expect we'll be getting some shortly.
Absolutely.
If not already, right?
Yeah. So it's sunny and maybe not too humid or hot up there. What's it like down in Hilton Head, Greg?
It is sunny and toasty in Hilton Head. I haven't looked at the temperature, but I can tell you that it was actually pleasant to drink a cup of coffee early this morning. Yeah.
It is 137 degrees here in the Atlanta area.
Is it really?
And it's still only 12:04 noon. Christian is tuned in via LinkedIn from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So welcome, Christian. Hope this finds you well. Sylvia Judy's back with us, the supply chain super ambassador of the Charleston, South Carolina area.
Right.
She says, good afternoon, y'all. Power just came back on. Thank the Lord for AC. I love that.
I bet it's toasty in Charleston as well.
Right. Just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Ira Binda. I think I got close there. Welcome from Bangladesh via LinkedIn. Look forward to your perspectives here today. Rohit is back with us from India, from DHL in India via LinkedIn. Great to see you here, Rohit. Natalie Christian's back. Great to see you, Natalie. Letty Barrett. Letty, your ears may have been burning earlier, right, Greg?
It was all good, Letty. That's all I can say. It was all good.
And finally, we know we can't hit everybody this morning, but Dr. Rhonda is giving us a weather update. Sunny and expected to go up to 107 in Phoenix, Arizona. How about that, Greg?
Yeah, you have to do anything physical in Phoenix except get in the pool before 6 a.m. And then it's only fit for pools at that point.
Oh,
even the pools have sunshades in Phoenix, just to give you an idea.
We got to work out a live stream application, a floating studio, as it were, for swimming pools. We'll work on that later on. All right.
Oh, I like that idea. Really,
isn't that a neat idea? Maybe even a few adult beverages, because today is National Moonshine Day. But hey, we may touch on that a little later on. Okay. So, Greg, with no further ado, we got a jam-packed conversation here today with our friends from Verusen. Let's bring in Christine Barnhart, Vice President of Product Strategy and Go-to-Market, and Melissa Dietz, Head of Customer Success, both with Verusen. Christine, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing wonderful. And Melissa, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. I do, in fact, have a lightsaber, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, and I made that transition in 2018, and nobody gave me a lightsaber, so I feel like I'm missing out.
Well, no one gave Darth Vader a lightsaber either. So you already came, I think, with a utility belt and plenty of ammunition. So
are you saying she's Darth Vader? That's not what he's saying, Christine.
No, all in good fun. I could have made the same joke with Luke Skywalker or who's the guy that rescued?
I thought somebody did give them lightsabers.
Maybe so. Who knows? My son knows more about Star Wars than I do these days.
Good point.
Well, Christine and Melissa, all kidding aside, great to have you here. Christine, we love on our repeat guests, so great to have you back. Enjoyed rubbing elbows with you down in Orlando at a conference down there. And Melissa, welcome in. I know we might have a cake later for you celebrating a really cool anniversary today. But Christine, let's start with you for a handful of folks. We'll call them, let's say 7 people that may have missed your last appearance. Tell us a little about yourself and give us a fun fact that maybe some folks may not know about Christine Barnhart.
Sure. So I am located in Evansville, Indiana. I affectionately call it Heavensville. Right where Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky come together, really cut my teeth in manufacturing and engineering kind of here locally. Was really lucky. Spent 12 years with Whirlpool Corporation, about 6 with Mead Johnson Nutrition, which is where I discovered supply chain, which, Mead Johnson in the news right now because they make infant formula. And then 3 years with Berry Global. So before I left, and I did join the dark side, if you will, in technology with Infor. So I think Melissa and I have that in common, the Coke companies, if you will, in our background. So I love supply chain. In terms of a fun fact, we moved from the suburbs to downtown about a year ago, and now I'm like integrated in the community. I love it. And I am participating with my tribe Saturday as like marshals or leaders of a pride parade. And I just bought my free mom hug shirt to wear for Saturday. So I'm pretty stoked about this. I'll send pictures.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do, Christine. That is awesome. And I think when I heard you say going on to the tech side, I think my brain went to how Tony Schroeder always talks about the reverse side as being the dark side. So that's why maybe Sith was involved in that comparison. I'm gonna go with that.
Got it.
But Christine, great to have you back, and looking forward to getting more of your insights here today. All right, so Melissa, let's get to know you a little bit better, including a little fun fact about Melissa.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
So Melissa Dietz, professionally, I would say I spent most of my career in large companies. So think about Exxon, GE, and then as Christine alluded to, several years in Georgia Pacific and in Vista with Coke. And I've managed, I think, to touch just about every point in the supply chain. So I started my career as the production process engineer, then went on to lead North American logistics and warehousing, have done long-term planning, short-term planning, strategic sourcing, and ended it all as leading a business for GP recycling. So
wow.
I don't know if I got everything, but I feel like I'm close, right? So.
No wonder you already had your lightsaber. Melissa, so give me a fun fact about Melissa Dietz.
I'm gonna go with the theme of moonshine, which is not, sadly not my jam. Although I am native to the South now in Atlanta, but my favorite is Uncle Nearest whiskey is what I've discovered.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely adore it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Greg, I've got to give a quick plug to our friends Tommy, Fred, and them at Granddaddy Mims, which is a growing business based right here in Georgia, and they make excellent product. We may have sampled a little bit over the weekend, but
only in the spirit of verification. Scott.
Melissa and I want to know how to get on this invite.
Okay,
I know, right? I feel like you need more help.
Hey, we'll take
15 flavors, Christine. So you've really got to commit.
I'm in. I'm committed.
All right, we're taking a bus up to the North Georgia mountains. Maybe we'll grab Catherine too. But in the meantime, let me share a couple quick comments, and then Greg, I'm gonna throw it over to you. Let's see here. Sanchit is with us from India. Great to have you, Sanchit. Looking forward to your perspective. Joseph's tuned in via LinkedIn. Y'all let me know where you are tuned in from. We'd love to connect the dots. Rohit says in India, the maximum temperature goes to 40 or 45, probably Celsius, I imagine. Yep. So he doesn't know how you guys live in the temperatures we were just talking about. Gene Pledger is back, the pride of North Alabama. Great to see you, Gene. And let's see here. One more. Sylvia gave a shout out to Firefly Moonshine, which is the distillery is right there in North Charleston. Oh, finally. Hey, y'all have got some backup in Stomp Rockets, Crawford Stomp Rockets McCarty. Crawford, great great to have you here. And Letty says on cue, how long do you think until Crawford McCarty mentions Stomp Rockets? So love it. Okay. So Greg, we got to get to some serious, some heavier lifting, but hey, these two are doing some really cool things in supply chain. Where are we starting with Christine?
Well, I would say that the current state of supply chain would drive a lot of people to drink, probably has. And I'm curious because you all have both been on the practitioner side and now the solution side. I'm curious what you're seeing there over the last year or two, especially Melissa, last year. We're going to let people know what that is all about. Dates and years. We're going to give it away slowly. So Melissa or Christine, why don't you share with us kind of what you've seen over the last year or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're really seeing is that the disconnection and the number of disparate systems has really only grown with most companies. And I don't think that trend is reversing. And even the big ERPs, if you will, are now starting to really embrace micro applications and broader partner strategies, which on the surface kind of makes it worse because you have more things going on, more systems. I think beyond that, we've seen that M&A has really recovered to pre-pandemic levels. And again, at least in the short term, what that generally means is more systems, more tools, more processes for people to try to manage. And these things are rarely connected. And so I think, one of the things that's just naturally happening is that people are having to manually move data. And even if they have a robust integration strategy, the data they have is dirty and they're kind of drowning in it, right? So that's where I always like to say, like, we didn't build data lakes, we built data swamps, right? Like, we have a lot of data, but we don't really know what to do with it. And so that hasn't changed in the last 3 years, which I think is, kind of depressing, actually.
Mm.
Well, and as you said, it's actually gotten worse. Every time one company rolls another into their ecosystem, like you say, they wind up with an additional ERP or supply chain solution or data methodology. They wind up with what could be the very same items, but identified unidentifiably to
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So that it's hard to determine that, hey, we already have that stuff. We don't need more of it. So there are all kinds of those things. And you're right, M&A is recovering, and especially considering valuations in the market today of companies, we can expect that to accelerate, which will only exacerbate the problem, right?
Yeah.
Melissa, tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm going to take it from, I think Christina outlined it really well from the macro level. I'll take it maybe down to the micro level at the sites. I think the challenge you have, not only do you have systems that don't talk to one another, but when you go under the covers, the data is not always the same or similar, right? Even if I have the same ERP, it can be very different, where sites will use columns or fields for something completely different than what they're meant for, which means when you try to aggregate it, you get a really incomplete picture, an inaccurate picture, right? And it's really hard to get that overall view of how do I wrap my hands around what I'm trying to look at, because my data itself isn't good.
Yeah, and it becomes an indiscernible mess, right? I mean, they call it a bucket, you call it a pail, right? And you mentioned the data doesn't talk to one another. A lot of times those sites, because they come from different companies, they don't talk to one another. They don't really have the opportunity to collaborate to bring this solution, bring any kind of solutions to bear. So I'm curious what you're seeing, Melissa, with companies that are actually tackling this successfully. What kind of solutions are they coming up with?
Well, it's interesting, Scott, because I'm sure we've all lived that ability where, you try to aggregate something and you go and say, hey, I have this really cool insight, and somebody goes, well, no, not really, because that data's not quite right. But what ends up happening, or what I've seen a lot, is people will go to good old Excel, right? So 9 times out of 10 is, how are you tackling your challenge? Because I have systems in place, but they either don't work well or they're really cumbersome and hard to navigate. So I go to my best friend Excel, and I would say largely that's what people are doing. Another thing I've seen is folks trying to do their own AI or create their own programs, which had a couple in GP where we did that, and they have challenges as well, I think, when you try to do that from scratch.
Hey, really quick, Greg, quick. Is it just me, or should there be like a Scooby-Doo and the gang meme where they catch the supervillain at the end, they take their mask off, and it's an Excel spreadsheet?
No kidding.
So let's get to work on that. But Greg, as you were going to say,
yeah, usually hidden in a dark corner or jumping out at you from a dark corner, right? I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever been or ever encountered one of those supply chain or one of those Excel data wizards, but it's frightening stuff. Christine, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from the challenges and possibly even how they're tackling it.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other key things we're really seeing is that, there's just a shortage of like the right people. And I know we've had some headlines recently where some of like startups and some of the bigger, companies have done some right sizing, I'm going to say, in terms of layoffs. But overall, there's still a shortage of people, especially in supply chain. And so, and quite frankly, a lot of the seasoned supply chain people, the people that know, right, they can take a spreadsheet, they can actually get an insight out of it, they're retiring at a record pace. And so I think, what we're now starting to see is companies kind of scrambling a bit and really like trying to figure out, okay, how do I address this, right? Like these people, they're not coming back. And the shortage of people is only going to get worse as we move forward. I think the upside to that is that, when I was coming up in manufacturing and supply chain and you said AI or automation, it was like, oh, robots are going to replace us. And I think, everybody was kind of scared of the technology. And I think now we are seeing a bit of a shift in mindset where people are like, yeah, make my job easier, help me do more with less people. And so I think from my standpoint, that's like actually a really exciting trend.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna talk more about. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Melissa. I'm gonna share a couple quick comments. But we're gonna talk more about maybe some of the suggestions y'all have for moving forward. But I want to make sure we get to the root cause of why so much of this stuff is not working and it's failing these organizations. But before I throw that back, I want to share a couple quick comments. Jesse says, "Hey, y'all should plan the Dawsonville Mountain Moonshine Festival in October." Jesse, it's a done deal. We're going to tee up the Supply Chain Now van. We're going to add benches in there and have the whole gang, just like the Scooby-Doo gang. Let's see here. Joseph.
First, we got to drop it and put new wheels on it, Scott.
Right.
Yeah.
Joseph's ready to compare notes with you there, Greg and Hilton Head. So we'll see if we can't make that happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
Rhonda's talking about we adapt, Rohit. We adapt with time, coping skills, and maybe adult beverages when it comes to dealing with all the heat. Now, Shimon goes back to something both Christine and Melissa, maybe Greg, all three of y'all are talking to. Shimon says, cannot agree more. We're struggling to get started on a strategic network project with a client, which is growing rapidly and are constantly acquiring newer partners. Our challenge is the varied system and formats and aggregation, as Melissa mentioned a moment ago. Let's see here. A couple of comments. T Squared says, looks like master data management and siloization, try to say that 5 times fast, are the endemic issues here. And of course, disparate systems not being properly integrated. And then one final note here. T Squared says, Shimon, you nailed it. Jesse also says, change management from Excel is amazing in its longevity. Excellent point there.
I hope he means out of Excel. I'm sure he does. Right?
Yes.
Excel is the most widely used planning and analysis tool in the world.
Yes.
It's crazy.
You can make
themselves.
There's macros that make sandwiches, that tie shoes, that answer the doorbell for you these days, all powered by Excel. But let's, if we can, both Christine and Melissa, y'all were talking a moment ago about why some of these things are failing. We'll give y'all one final word before we get into some of y'all's suggestions. So let's see here. Let's go to you first, Christine. Tell us, why are these things not working? What you're seeing being done?
I'm going to be honest. I think that just part of the problem is just the approach is wrong. We're trying to solve these problems in really traditional ways, which are like these projects, and projects have a beginning and they have an end. And to be honest, what we need are like living, breathing ecosystems and tools that learn and grow and adapt. Right. I think, that one of the things we saw in like the 22 predictions from Gartner was they said that like 92% of supply chain executives recognized how important it was to adopt these emerging technologies and these new business models, but they were still relying on old technology and old techniques like spreadsheets and kind of these basic ERPs. And it just does not yield the results that you need.
Excellent point, Christine. And we're maybe taking a step further. It also could be contributing to the heightened turnover we're seeing in supply chains. Many organizations have reported on, and you don't want to burn your people out. You want to love on them and give them what they need, empower them. Exactly. Melissa, what else would you add to why this stuff's not working?
Yeah, I have a little bit nerdier answer, if you will. But in my mind, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take linear solutions to a non-linear problem, right? So when I think about Excel, what does Excel do really well? It solves the heck out of linear problems. And I was thinking of one where we had an Excel spreadsheet. The long story short, it was to do asset planning at one of our sites. And we had maxed out the capability of Solver. We actually had to run it twice. And it would always, because we maxed it out, it would always break kind of halfway through. So ultimately, it took like 3 days to run this guy every month to do our asset planning. We're trying to make, equipment or tools do what they're really not designed to do anymore, right? And then I think the other thing that we touched on earlier is that change management piece. As the native knowledge in people's heads, as it leaves, Excel certainly does what it does, but there's no change management piece with that. And it's really complicated. And I think that's another way that we're failing. And same actually with which are large systems, as Greg alluded to before. We're trying to make them do what they're not designed to do. And it ends up being expensive. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of manpower. And it end up just frustrating people at the end of the day.
Excellent point. And I got to bring in these. Sylvia says ERP, Endless Redundancies Platform. That's a great acronym there. Jesse says, excellent point, Melissa, on that linear versus nonlinear. And then Natalie, living ecosystems. Love it. Supply chain tech needs to be adaptive for whatever situation is in front of us. Greg, your quick response, and then we're gonna continue picking Christine and Melissa's mind here.
Yeah, to Christine's point, you're not going to cease companies continuing to evolve. So the knowledge in your technology has to continue to evolve. And to Melissa's point, it can't in Excel and it can't in a lot of these old technologies, right? I mean, one of the biggest issues with Excel is lack of data accountability, manual errors in calculations and all of those sorts of things. And then inconsistency, or frankly, in a lot of cases, it's a relative amateur put in charge of a scientific project, and that creates a lot of dangers and misnomers. We replaced a system that when we started my technology company, we replaced a system that took 70 people and 16 weeks to down to just a handful of people in a day to do the same work and produce better, accountable, adjustable results.
Wow.
So, I mean, the power is definitely there in technology.
But that shortens all the time. You go from having probably good food and great wine, 37 nights to just one, Greg. Come on, man.
It saves a lot of shoe soles, though, Scott. We had this thing we called SneakerNet, where people would have to run back and forth to one another's pods to
love it,
to compare data.
Right? The stories, Greg. I can't wait. You gotta write a book. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We've kind of waddled in the mud a bit. I'm just gonna skip right over that. We're talking about the data swamp.
Waited.
Yeah. I don't know.
I like waddling through mud.
Melissa, thank you for rescuing me. And we've talked about the data swamp. We've talked about about the TIE fighters that are buried in the data swamp. Let's shift gears over to what some of the things that companies and leaders should be doing. And Melissa, what would be some of your recommendations? I'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, I think as you think about what you want to do going forward, it's looking for applications that really target what you're trying to solve, right? So again, the kind of counter to the one size fits all. Let's look for an application that's really targeted to your pain point and it's out of the box, right? So what I'm thinking is, hey, look, if I have something that does what I want it to do, I can get it up and running quickly. That's going to add more value much more quickly than if I have to go and customize something and build it from scratch and hire consultants and do everything you need to do.
Excellent point there, Melissa. Christine, what else would you add when it comes to recommendations?
Yeah, I'm going to actually give what Melissa just described a term, and we're going to call that purpose-built. You really need to look for purpose-built technology, purpose-built solutions. And that's where I think the phrase kind of micro apps comes in, right? So it's looking for the micro app where the company, your partner, really understands the challenge, the business problem you're trying to solve. And then those partners bring with them kind of a broad range of capabilities. You don't want a one-trick pony, right? You want somebody that can do machine learning, and they have multiple types of modeling and maybe some deep learning and natural language processing and all of these kind of modern tools that then allow a company, a partner to actually leverage those in a way that it makes it easy and very quick for you to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And so I think it's, not being a mile wide and an inch deep, but really focused in the space, really deep knowledge is really what allows us, I think, to move forward in a much more positive way in terms of solving supply chain problems.
Excellent point. All right. So Greg, I'm going to toss it over to you in just a second. I got to share a couple of quick comments here. Jose, great to have you here. You're touched on something we're going to touch on in just a second. Jose is urgently doing his own AI on Excel, of course, he says, and you're all hitting on the right points, everyone. Excellent
Actual
point.
intelligence, right? That's not artificial.
Right.
Sometimes you forget that. Oh, it's hard to impart that into Excel, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
Although I've worked with some folks that were bound and determined to do just that. All right, so we're really wallowing in the Excel. That was where I was.
There it is.
Natalie says, good points. Those creating the new tech need to be talking with the current users more. I'm not an expert in AI, but I'm highly skilled in Excel. It's the path of least resistance rather than learning something new. That's a great point. That's a risk to some of these.
Yep.
I do think, Scott, though, that's a reason, like when you look at a company like Verusen, you have two people like Melissa and I, right, on the leadership team that we've done the jobs. Like we've lived it. We've had the late nights and the phone calls and the Post-it notes and the emails and we're
waiting through Excel.
We've waited or waddled, as it were.
Wallowed.
I probably more waddled through it, but
Yes.
we've definitely spent plenty of time there.
All right, so Greg.
Yeah, I just think to that last point, I think it's important to understand that yes, the knowledge that people have of why they do things, not how they do things in Excel or why they do things in their current process, that's critical. And I think where a lot of companies, when they engage technology providers or even other solution providers like consultants, they say, this is how we do it. And that doesn't matter. It's easy to wallow in how you do it. But the point is, you want to get to why you do it. What's the goal that we're trying to accomplish? And if you can impart someone with the skills that Christine and Melissa have with here's where we want to get to, let them figure out the how you get there. Some of it will align with the way you do things today. Some of it will diverge from the way you do things today. And some of it will impart some of the knowledge and the methodologies that you use to do things today. And that's a critical thing. So many companies, the reason that their technology fails them in so many cases is their own fault by buying $100 million worth of technology and trying to make it do the process the way they've done it manually. And with historical, to Melissa's point, historical considerations. This is the data we had when we bought this system. Now we have new data. We try to like jam this new data into an old process, and you really need to evolve the process with the presence of new data and new processes, and frankly, new expectations in the marketplace. There's no place for us to hide in supply chain anymore. So we have to take greater responsibility and recognize the sort of higher purpose.
Yes. I love that word purpose. I love that you mentioned it. I love that Christine's mentioned it. I think Melissa fit it in because that's what it's all about. And that's what top talent want to be part of too, right? A purpose-driven operation, a purpose-driven organization. Okay, so speaking of, Greg, I want to shift gears over and we're going to be talking about Verusen a little bit more to kind of maybe level set with folks. Where are we going next, Greg?
Well, okay, so first a disclaimer. I'm an investor and advisor to Verusen. But that was after I discovered the miracles that this solution can provide. So with that all said, I want everyone to understand these questions I know the answers to, and the answers are not for me. They're for you out there in TV land.
Out there in TV land. I love it.
He's going to correct us if Melissa and I
That's
don't.
right.
Oh,
I don't know what that
The pressure.
I don't know
my
what that
goodness,
deeply.
Greg.
Advisor knows this much. You guys know it all the way down to the ground level. So you are talking about materials, right? And the complexity in managing materials specific to MRO and indirect materials, however people classify those. But you're also, I hear, you're also investing in solutions for direct materials too. So what are the capabilities that are really required to tackle those various areas of the business? Sorry, let's start with Melissa first. We'll get the
Greg,
geeky answer first, Melissa.
All right. Yeah. Well, as head of customer, I got to start with its UI UX, right? So I think the customer experience is so important on any type of technology. If it's not intuitive and easy to use, quite frankly, we found people just won't use it, right?
Yeah.
And so then you spent money on a solution that sits on the shelf and other people work around it. So that to me is probably the top thing. Hey, it's just got to be intuitive, friendly to use, and people have to, well, I'm going to say enjoy, but like working with the platform. The second thing that I think is really important with the pace of things that are changing, you have to have the ability to pull data in quickly, right? So that the days of having quarterly updates in your data are gone. Monthly is probably the lowest bar that you could possibly live with, and we got to shoot for faster. So that leads you more to cloud solutions where I can update data quickly. It can change with my business. I can get really fresh and good technical insights. I think that's critical. And obviously the security you get with a cloud is I'm going to add as key in that as well. It could be a whole nother show, right? But
and I think to that point, I don't think people have necessarily understood cloud. I think they understand it a lot better than they did when we introduced it at our company in 2011. And they probably understand it better than I did then also. But the power, the sheer power that provides, right? Imagine instead of a server sitting in a dark office in your office, you have thousands, hundreds of thousands of computers that can process all this complex data using the techniques ML and AI that we've talked about. And until now, and that's why a lot of today's solutions haven't been able to attack the problem, is because of that. Until now, they operated on premise with as big of a whatever type mainframe or AS400 people have mentioned here that you could afford. And that really limited your ability to do things, right?
That's right.
So that's great, Melissa. Thank you. Christine, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things fundamentally that you have to look for. And it's definitely things that we've kind of built into our application. And I think first and foremost, you got to have visibility, right? Like just bring the data together, make it visible, break down those silos. And then once you've made it visible, then I do think it's applying those advanced technologies that we've talked about. So artificial intelligence, maybe, a lot of people start with rules-based modeling. We've actually advanced to probabilistic modeling, which is much more agile, flexible, provides better results. It's optimization. It's delivering insights contextually. So that gets into, why do you want a purpose-built solution? Why do you want to make sure that partner really understands your space? Because they can't provide context to the data if they don't, right? I think the other, kind of recommendation or capability that we think is really important is working with a partner that's already made that data science investment. If you try to hire data scientists to do this, right, you're looking at a considerable amount of expense. They're in high demand. Then you have to train somebody in what it is you do, what's important to your business. And then you're still looking at months and months and months of collecting data, training models, trying to get, kind of to the best place you can be. And then, I think finally it's, for us, yes, you want it to be configurable. But if it has to be customized, then we probably were too broad and we weren't doing it right. Right. We should be able to deliver insights, have built-in reporting, built-in analytics, built-in dashboards. And that's what really gives you that very, very fast time to value. We're not talking a year, 2 years, right? We're talking weeks and months.
Well said. Hey, Greg, before we move forward with this conversation, we've had a flurry of comments and a lot of questions we're not going to get to. But hey, we're going to try to, post this conversation here today. Maybe I bet Christine and Melissa love talking shop over a cup of coffee or a frosty beverage. Melissa, I can't remember the name of the whiskey that you prefer. My apologies. But Uncle Nearest. Thank you very much. So
lots of people prefer it, so she's going to get a lot of interest. I'm just saying,
a lot of good company.
The founder of National Supply Chain Day, Mary Kate Love, just joining in, and she says that this is a dream team on the live stream. Hey, how about that?
How about being called that by the founder of National Supply Chain Day? Right?
That is right. Peter Boley, all night and all day. Hey, Peter, hope this finds you well. A live stream without you isn't the same. Great to see you. Let's see here. I also want to get to Michael Jones. Great to see you, Michael. The more you automate on bad processes, the faster you get in trouble. How
just start swirling
true.
the drain faster
Sounds
and
like,
faster. Exactly.
Might be
And
voice
the
of
truth.
experience on that one, right?
Right, Melissa. Michael, we'll let you do tell. T Squared says definitely means UAT will be prevalent with new systems introduction. And then finally from Jesse, the current supply chain has been so reactive due to the market impacts that having updates, even at a monthly basis, puts a company at a disadvantage.
True.
Lots of head
True.
nods there.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so Greg, man, a lively crowd here today. Where are we going next with Christine and Melissa?
So I can almost hear the discussion behind the scenes as people watch this, and they're like, okay, well, we built Excel to tackle this problem. Why couldn't we build our own system to tackle this problem, right? The big trade-off that I think functional and very focused technology solutions have always faced is the buy versus the build issues. So I think that sounds great in practice. You both have addressed points that I think you could laser point at why you would or wouldn't do that. But why can't you, or maybe why shouldn't you build a solution internally for your company? Christine, I'm going to just light the candle and let you take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about some of it already, which is just if you are trying to build it internally, it's super costly, very time consuming. And unfortunately, what we see is a lot of people will take a project approach. And like I said, projects have a beginning and an end. And then, so you kind of clean stuff up, you're moving in a more positive direction, but then everybody pulls off and things start to erode again, right? So I think that's one thing. I definitely do not think you can take a project approach to solving these supply and material complexity issues. So let's say you try to actually build a platform similar to what we have. I mean, it's a huge investment. And I think the issue with that is also, is this really where you want to make that investment, right? Like, we have a purpose-built solution. It solves this problem. If I was running a company and I was going to make this investment, I would put it into areas that really require a better, like an understanding of the intricacies of my business. And generally that means the customer side, not the supply side, right? Supply side is complicated because we don't have the right tools, but in terms of the motion of, understanding what you need and how you buy, we understand that. Consumer behavior is really, I think, a better place to make those kind of big investments, and then partnering with somebody like Verusen to solve this kind of purpose functional area is a way to get that bang for your buck without the time commitment, the cost commitment, so on and so forth.
Two things are always true about internal builds. One, you get one company's perspective, and usually it's focused on a problem that they want solved. And it's usually, as we talked about earlier, from the perspective of how that company has always solved it, just to Michael's point, taking that bad process and doing it faster. And secondarily, there is never a phase two, right? Like you said, Christine, they build the core solution. They plan all this stuff for phase two. The first time I heard somebody say that when they were building an internal solution, they said, well, we'll push this off to phase two. Somebody had the boldness to say in a meeting with all the executives, there is never a phase two. Phase two will never happen.
Haven't you seen this movie before? There are no second chapters.
Right. Right. So, Melissa, I know you get to see this firsthand a lot, both from all the I know I can feel your pain as you're discussing some of this, but now you're solving those pains for people. So give us an idea of kind of what you're seeing from that standpoint. Why wouldn't you just build it?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I'm going to go back to the nerdy side of the force here again and go, it's the data, right? It takes so much data to train the AI in a really meaningful way to give you those really cool insights. It's impossible to get that at a corporate level, right? You have to be at an industry level. And the beauty of Verusen is not only do we give you your industry, but we give you lots of other industry data as well. So now you have that that network effect is what we call it, right? Of having the aggregated knowledge across all these different places that roll up, that are under the covers, if you will, that are leading to the insights in your data. And I think that's really the magic sauce. And not to mention there are plenty of phase twos in our house, right? It's constantly evolving platform, so it's only going to get better. Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with you here, Melissa, in just a second. I'll add in a couple comments here. Rhonda says, hey, I feel like I need to ask my team about the continued process of developing technology platforms. We have several proprietary systems in place that are still working out the glitches. Don't we all, Dr. Rhonda? Don't we all?
And those glitches
yes,
keep you from ever really advancing the technology, right?
Yes. Well said. I love when Greg says, I got two things. You better get your popcorn Diet Coke, folks, because it's gonna be good. Crawford says phase 2 is 12 years later when they buy the tool they should have bought in phase 1.
Exactly.
Crawford, on the money. On the money. I wish I had a Stomp Rocket icon I could drop in the comments here. Okay. So Melissa, nicknames are too fun and so much of a dad joke, but hey, it's true. It's a lot of fun. All right. So Melissa, let's get, if you would, some practical examples of where Verusen, both of y'all have kind of alluded to it a couple times, mentioned a few things, but what else would you like to add when it comes of how Verusen's helping customers out there?
Yeah, thanks. If I don't have an answer to this as head of customer, I probably should just leave the show now, right? So
exit stage right.
That's right. I'm going to highlight 3 areas I think I see that our customers gain a lot of value from the tool. The first is going back to the very beginning of the show when we talked about aggregating all that disparate data. Having all that data together in one place where you can see it and wrap your arms around, hey, this is what I have, is incredibly valuable, especially when you have a team that's in charge of optimizing inventory, right? That's it sounds simple, but it's actually not. And I've worked in several companies where I'm trying to pull data out of, I can think of at least 5 different systems to try to get myself that aggregate view. And I would have been very grateful for a place I could just click on a dashboard and see it all right there. And then leading into that is having, I'm going to call it all the relevant information on one pane of glass. So my life that I lived in, both as an engineer and when I was in the planning teams, where there's that, I'm going to call it that clash of incentives, right? Or that natural friction. On the corporate level, I want to optimize and reduce my working capital. At the site level, I just want to keep my assets running. And I want to keep 1 million spare parts as long as my assets run, right? And then how do you get those two people aligned on the same page can be really difficult. And what we found is by having, I'm going to say, trusted information, everything you need to make a decision. And by everything, I'm talking about, hey, what's on hand, here are your stock levels, here's what you've issued, here are your lead times, where everyone can go in and look at it and understand the same thing. That leads to really quicker, faster, better decisions that are aligned across the company. And that allows you to implement those recommendations at a much faster pace. An example I'll throw out there is we identified $100 million of optimization opportunities for one of our larger global companies, and they were able to run through those in 4 months. So when we say it's a quick time to value, yeah, it's amazingly fast when you have all the information in one place. And then
there's still time to take action this year and have bottom line returns, right? Yeah, let's do it.
That's right. It's a very quick implementation and a very, very fast time to value.
So you were going to add, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. We always love talking timeframes because I think some folks, they can get caught up in some of the topics and themes and kind of nature situation and think, oh man, it's a mountain too tall to climb. But this is quick. This is quick. So Melissa, you're going to share one more thing there. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries, Scott. The last thing I was just going to say, which has been really relevant in this time when most people are in an oversold situation, is that I'm going to call it downtime insurance. So we have a use case where one of our customers had an asset go down. They went into their storeroom, didn't have the spare part, called the vendor, several months of lead time before they could get another spare part.
Wow.
Hopped into Verusen, did a quick search, found the same part at a sister location, overnighted it, and the downtime was in a matter of hours versus a matter of weeks, right?
Wow.
So that's so valuable in this time when people need to really have those robust supply chains.
And what Melissa didn't mention is that they made phone calls to their sister facilities, and their sister facilities said, no, we don't have that, because they were looking like for the exact item. And that's one of those, when we talk about natural language processing, natural language query, it's that ability to kind of understand kind of at a fuzzy level, oh, that it kind of looks like this. And then you bring that forward, and a person gets to say, oh yeah, you're right, these are the same, right? And that is so lacking. Quite frankly, if you haven't bought your solution in the last several years, it probably didn't have that in it. Regardless of how much money you spent on it. I'm sorry to tell you that, but yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
sorry, not sorry.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, yeah.
So, in my, one of the phrases I know you like talking about is material truth. It's like ding, 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 title fight. In this corner, it's supply chain as usual. And in this corner, it's the champion, the material truth. I can almost see it playing out, the title card in my mind.
Man,
Greg, I know you're
that
with
would
me
make
there.
a great silk,
Oh,
fighting
yeah.
jacket. Of
Absolutely.
Course, yes.
Title belt, the whole 9 yards.
Ideas, Christine.
I know we might have to put Scott on the marketing team. He's got some good ideas there.
We have, we've known and have seen the Verusen team grow for quite some time. And I tell you, to see the talent here and folks in the comments and just in general, it's amazing the journey y'all have been on and the impact you're having. With that said, Christine, I'll give you a chance to any other comments around some things you're doing. Greg, I'm going to give you a chance to weigh in, and then we're going to move to a couple of quick resources as we come around the turn, come down the home stretch. Christine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to kind of highlight from the Verusen perspective, we really have kind of 4 key value drivers for our purpose-built supply chain intelligence platform. And the first is really enterprise sustainability. And that really is because we're bringing all this data together, because we're serving it up to you in a really easy to digest means, you can reduce risk, you can increase your operational resiliency. The second pillar is really around inventory optimization. So now that I have all this data, I can apply these advanced techniques, and I can start to make recommendations for, well, maybe based on what's happening in your business, you should keep more of this and less of this. Or maybe we might tell you that, oh, we identified that these 2 things were very similar and you only need to keep one of them. I think the next part of that is really network optimization. It's great to do that in a single facility, but when you can actually aggregate across all of your facilities, get that global search that Melissa was talking about, and start to actually aggregate the spend, maybe make better choices about where you're going to stock a key item. And then, kind of foundationally, just the insights and the data management, procurement insights, supplier insights, really bringing forward trends and letting you understand what's happening with your data. Because, I've worked in manufacturing for 20 years. And if we were lucky, we did like a master data review once a year. And we would be like, oh, you mean the lead time's no longer 4 weeks, it's 6 weeks. Right. And so we understood why we were always expediting that material. I think that's the beauty of a solution like ours that, builds that agility and is constantly looking at that data. You're not sitting around waiting for there to be a problem.
Greg?
Yeah, preemptive, right? That's the most important thing about this solution. I think the other is that it's a low friction technology, because you don't have to do a data cleanse. You can say this equals that, right? And you can do that intellectually, or the technology can do that for you with artificial intelligence, right? Because the technology is constantly learning that this is a derivative of that, or it's exactly the same thing, just with different names, because we bought this company, we bought this plant from that company, and that plant from this other company, but it's exactly the same product. So I think the huge hurdle that companies perceive in terms of data cleanse, which is a never-ending project, almost never successful project, because it is so never-ending, because this technology can first of all enable you to not need that, and then continually learn to better and better classify items as similar, the same, interchangeable, whatever. It just means that you, like Melissa is talking about. That's why you can do this implementation in weeks or months, not years, and get the same and much better results much more quickly. So there are some really cool technologies in here, which is why investors are, and of course clients are, really interested in this product. So
yes,
it just they completely have changed the perspective on how to tackle this problem.
Love it. Got a need for speed, as the market is saying over and over again right this minute, even though well, I'll save that Thunderbirds versus Blue Angels discussion for a later show with Kevin Jackson.
Don't do it, and don't do it while Kevin's on the show.
No.
The POC for the Blue Angels
really, Christine,
when it came to Evansville. Yeah, I was on the board for the air show, so I have a perspective.
We have to introduce you to Kevin Jackson then.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna have to talk, Melissa and Christine. We're gonna have to talk a lot more about our military experiences. But let's we're coming down the home stretch. Beyond connecting with Christine and Melissa, which we're going to touch on in just a second, we've got a couple resources that the team's going to drop in the comments. The first is really a simple comparison, kind of lays it out between legacy approaches and how Verusen does it. So look for that link to be dropped here shortly. And then the second one, if I can tee this up with my best Motown voice here, let me see if I can do it. So this white paper on elevating digital transformation, because folks, let's face it, there truly ain't no mountain high enough when it comes to elevating your digital transformation. Greg, back me up there. Can you sing it? Can you hear it? Can you sing it?
I listened to it this weekend, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Ain't no mountain. All right, I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
But y'all check out the link.
And Marvin Gaye, of course.
So, but we got an image there. Christine or Melissa, maybe Christine, really quick. This white paper is chock full of factoids from a variety of third parties. It also gives some more great recommendations. What's one reason, Christine, folks should take a minute and download this white paper, you think?
Well, I mean, I think the MRO space in general is kind of overlooked. There hasn't been a lot of innovation there. And so we're really saying, yes, you need to be on an intelligence journey. That's how you're going to mature your supply chain and kind of get to nirvana, right? But we recommend that you really start and are experimenting in that MRO space, because it's a little less risky than starting kind of in the direct materials space or in the customer space. So there's a lot of good reasons to start with MRO. Excellent point. And I think I saw on social, Greg, everyone's got a different starting point. It's not like Monopoly where everyone starts in the go square, right? Right. And I love how you got to kind of really assess where you are and find that really practical starting point. And I really appreciate the been there, done that perspective that Christine and Melissa both offers up here. Greg, before we make sure folks know how to connect with our esteemed panel, or as Mary Kate Love, the one and only, says, the dream team here. Greg, what else would you add when it comes to starting points and finding that footing? And really, it's not about just one site, as Christine and Melissa has spoken about, improving how they do it. It's that force multiplier effect going across the enterprise, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more coming from Verusen, of course, in regards to trusted suppliers and entire networks. And we've talked a lot about supply as a network rather than a chain. These days, there's a lot more coming there. But I think what's important about what we're doing at Verusen is that the principles on which Verusen is founded are well established in terms of finished goods. Finished goods have always worked for inventory optimizations. The margins have been low and the volumes have been low, and that requires a ton of science to be effective enough. And what they're doing is they're pushing those proven principles up the supply chain to direct and ultimately to MRO. And everything, by the way, starts with MRO, which is another good reason to do it, because it doesn't matter what your direct materials are, which are the ingredients or whatever of your product, if you can't build the damn things. So you have to be able to build the stuff first, right? I think when you start to apply those advanced principles to solutions like that, and you do the data cleansing that we're talking about, and then you expand that to your supplier network, which we talk about all the time, it's an incredibly valuable and impactful solution. So, and again, a very low lift, right? Just
get started by plowing that data in there.
I spent years ago, I had a chance to spend 3 or 4 days with a MRO spares maintenance team with a regional airline, air carrier. And it's fascinating just how much as an air traveler in that example that we all just take for granted, and how much is in our blind spot in terms of complexity to keep these aircraft up in the air safely with all, especially as we enter summer season. This is prime season, right?
And would we feel safe if we knew that all that was being managed on a spreadsheet?
Ooh, Greg, nice spike in the football, man. Okay.
Seriously.
Well, so let's make sure, folks. I said football. Christine, of course, a huge, massive Cincinnati Bengals fan. I look forward to what the Bengals are going to be doing coming up. Let's make sure folks know how to connect with both you and Melissa to talk supply chain, talk football, you name it. Christine, how can folks connect with you?
I think the easiest way to connect with me is probably LinkedIn. I'm on it at least once a day. Happy to accept your invite. Always happy to communicate, via message and whatnot there.
Easy. It's just that easy. I think we got the link to Christine's LinkedIn profile in the comments along with Melissa's. And Melissa, how can folks connect with you?
Same. LinkedIn is probably the best way. I'm Atlanta Falcons fan, so I probably prefer not to talk about football, but I will do it if it works.
And she's going to have a lot of time on her hands during the playoffs. So,
gosh,
sorry, I'm not going to be busy during playoffs this year. No.
Yeah.
Well, we talk a lot about, not in this conversation, but other conversations about supply chain, digital transformation, and how it can take years on end. A lot of companies talk about how much they can lose. Well, football transformation for the Atlanta Falcons might be a decade-long proposition. I don't know. I'm not a pessimist by nature, but Melissa, I feel you as a bandwagon Falcons fan. Okay, so big thanks to Christine and Melissa with Verusen. Really appreciate y'all's time here today. Greg, don't go anywhere. We're going to wrap in just a second. Greg, I'm going to give you the last word, but big thanks again, Christine Barnhart, Melissa Dietz, both with Verusen. Be sure to connect with LinkedIn. Greg, how great and how much fun was this conversation, including your football spike there at the end?
Well, it is good because, I usually only get to see even this company at the very highest level. And it's good to see these two ladies are the people with their hands in the mix, making sure that what we say in the ivory tower gets delivered on the desktop to the customers. And it's getting delivered in spades. I mean, the millions and tens of millions of dollars of value created by this product. Well, that's just per client. I mean, it's way more than that. Is really, really impressive. And frankly, why I got involved in it, Scott, I'm very bored, easily bored. And so it's got to be something exciting and impactful for me to want to be involved in it. I see so much more that's coming, but most importantly, and look, I would encourage you, whether it's Verusen, if you can't get help with Verusen, get help somewhere.
Yes.
But I would encourage you, whether it's Verusen or somewhere else, to stop thinking about replacing your ERP and start looking at targeted solutions. There is literally one out there for everything you want to do. And you want something that is a low lift from a data and from a consumer and from a user, customer, client, and from an implementation standpoint, because those solutions deliver quickly and sustainably, which is something, the sustainability of, or what should I say, the maintainability of the results you get from a home built or an Excel spreadsheet or even Google Docs or whatever the heck else.
All those abilities.
Notes, if anyone remembers Lotus, right, that you get from that, they're simply not maintainable. And we can't afford in the practice, in the craft of supply chain today, to have something that doesn't grow with the recognition of complexity that we have in the supply chain today, because there is nowhere to hide. The consumers know whose fault it is that something didn't get into their inbox, right, into their mailbox or on their front step. So there's no place to hide. You can't afford to lean on plausible deniability anymore. And this is exactly the kind of solution that allows you to enable your business to never have to.
Folks, there's no hiding nor crying in global supply chain these days. And by the way, learn something new. Natalie's a fellow Bengals fan. So Natalie, you and Christine will have to compare notes. Thanks to all the great comments. There's so many we couldn't get to in the skyboxes here today. Thanks for joining us here today. Big thanks to Christine and Melissa, the whole production team as well that makes it happen. Greg, always a pleasure to have these conversations with you. But folks, whatever you do, and however this hits you, whether it's operationally, whether it's in a more of a human fashion, society fashion, but whatever you do. Hey, Scott Lute and Greg White challenging you to do good, to give forward, but be the change that's needed. And on that note, we see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.